College football fans, what up? It's the one and only Cole Thompson here. And I already prefaced this in another video, but we have a ton of summer projects here on this channel, and one of which is the top 10, where I'm going to be taking the 10 best players at every single position and ranking them in order. You clicked on the thumbnail, which means you know what we're talking about today. It's my top 10 quarterbacks going into the 2024 season. But if you're new here, welcome on in. Make sure that you like the video, hit the comment section down below. Give me your top 10 compared to my top 10. Make sure that also you hit subscribe, because we're talking college football every single day leading up to week 1 and well throughout the 2024 season. Make sure that also you tell your friends, family, mortal enemies, best of bros, college football aficionados everywhere about this channel, because we're not only on the race to become the #1 YouTube show talking about our favorite sport, but I want to be the #1 college football community right here on YouTube. Follow me on all the socials at Mr. Cole Thompson, Twitter, X, Instagram, Facebook. Literally, it is the exact same as my YouTube handle. So when you hit subscribe here, go hit follow over there. That way conversations never have to stop flowing. And if you want to see a one-off video about a question you have, be part of the mailbag that we do every single week, make sure that you email me, colethompsonwriting@gmail.com, or slide in the DMs on Twitter. I'll turn it into a one-off video. Top 10 quarterbacks entering 2024. Here's the deal. A lot of these are going to change by the season's end, and some of these are probably even going to change after what we know going out of fall camp. There's going to be upgrades at certain positions. There's a couple of teams that are adding in more players right now. The portal's closed, but there's still some players that can't stay in there forever. So I want to preface this by saying this is just my way too early top 10s. This is how I feel about these quarterbacks, what they've already produced, and what they could be by the season's end. Before we go into the top 10, real fast honorable mention. Hopefully you can read it down below. Nico Iamaleava from Tennessee. He is unproven. Yeah, we got the bowl game, but besides that, there's not much to go off of. High upside, honestly, probably the highest upside of anyone on here. Could eventually find his way into the top 5. Avery Johnson, kind of the same boat. Really like what he is going to bring to Manhattan. There was a reason why Will Howard left. It's because they knew that #2 was coming on in and going to be a much more substantial option. Garrett Nussmeier's been sitting and waiting in the wings for years at LSU. He finally gets his shot with Jaden Daniels now off the pros. It's going to be a very similar offense, and I think that he has similar numbers. Riley Leonard at Notre Dame goes and joins Mike Denbrock. Like, could you imagine if this guy ends up having similar success like Jaden Daniels, mobile quarterback with a good arm, now in South Bend? This is going to take Notre Dame over the top. Seth Hannigan from Memphis deserves a lot of respect. There's not a lot of group of 5 quarterbacks that will be mentioned on this list. I want to throw him on here. There is a reason why the Tigers are being talked about as the group of 5 favorites to go to the playoff. In large part, it's due to Hannigan. Jalen Daniels would be in the top 10 if he could stay healthy. I just don't know what version I'm getting of him at Kansas. Brady Cook at Mizzou. He's got a lot of weapons around him that will hide some of the flaws, but he is a good quarterback. Will Howard at Ohio State. Kind of the same thing, but he's got a little bit more of that elusiveness in the open field. Got a little bit of Josh Allen to his game in terms of good arm strength, but also physical in the open field as a runner. Jackson Arnold from Oklahoma. I think that there's a reason why you saw Dylan Gabriel transfer. And number 11 is going to bring a lot of problems to teams throughout college football in 2024. One more name, but I couldn't fit it on here, and I want to throw it out. KJ Jefferson at UCF. If you haven't seen him at Arkansas, you're about ready to watch him shine when he goes down and works with Gus Malzahn. Number 10, Cam Rising. Do you remember the last time we saw Cam Rising on the football field? Well, he was walking off with a torn ACL, and he didn't know when he was going to be back. But do you remember what happened the week before, or really about a month before? Led his team in a conference which featured Lincoln Riley, the Heisman Trophy winner, and Caleb Williams, and a very systematically sound offense at USC. Yeah, beat them in the Pac-12 championship for a second time, a second Pac-12 championship. This guy has everything that you want. And by the way, he's also at this point basically majoring in college football. Going into his 7th season, has the ability to prove that he can be a quality player for his career. 46 touchdowns, over 5,000 passing yards, 14 interceptions. The big thing that I wonder about him is how quickly he is going to be able to come back, build that relationship with the new receivers that came on in, but also how is he going to adjust to playing in Big 12 football? Because of he is going to be a veteran that can easily, I think, compete for more than just a conference title. He can maybe sneak into the Heisman Trophy conversation. Would it really shock you to see a guy that's been around the block and has been a part of a system for 4+ years find a way to come back and have another great season? Wouldn't shock me. And I think that when you look at what the pedigree is in the Big 12, there's going to be some really good quarterbacks. There's a lot of Big 12 quarterbacks actually in my top 10. Rising's that veteran presence. You get back Brayton Keithy as well. You bring over Dorian Singer. If you get the version of Dorian Singer that was at Arizona, that gives you a 1-2 combination that's going to open the field a lot more. I think Cam Rising belongs on this list simply because of his veteranship, but also you've seen the results. The dude wins, and he also is going to be winning in a conference where he could set the tone as Utah makes the jump to being the flagship of the Big 12. There's no doubt in my mind that when you watch the way he plays football, the way he is able to get the ball out of his hands and consistently find open receivers, he is a really, really good player. That knee injury, though, that's going to be the thing that decides how he ends up panning out. Garrett Greene from West Virginia comes in at number 9 for me. We don't talk about West Virginia enough, people. We don't. Go ahead and look back at that team last year. This was the underdog that still is an underdog. Like Arizona, they came out of the blue in the woodshed and said, hey, we mean business. You look at some other teams like Tulane showing up over the last 2 years, we mean business. Boise State coming back after firing Andy Avalos and winning the Mountain West. Well, here's West Virginia that goes 9-4 last year, holds their own against everybody, is in the middle of the Big 12 race all the way up until early November, and nobody is bringing them up in this conversation. And it's funny because of why wouldn't you? In large part, it's because of the quarterback. Garrett Greene is one of the more elusive, hyper-athletic, superstar, mobile, consistent playmakers in college football. Not just quarterbacks, but playmakers in college football. And I think that immediately when you look at how he is able to keep things open, the way he is able to tuck and run, pick up a few extra first downs, find a way to get inside the end zone. He had over a dozen rushing touchdowns last year. Not to mention, he also had 21 passing touchdowns. He can do everything. And the biggest part is that he is going to keep drives alive and keep West Virginia in games. And so he's not probably going to be a favorite to make it into the NFL, but you talk to some people around the league and they say there's a lot to like about his skill set and what he provides for our offense. I'm not going to count him out just entirely yet. He is a really sound player. He is somebody that is only, I think, going to build off of having another year as the starter in Morgantown. And if he ends up being as advertised, watch out for the Mountaineers. The Big 12 is going to be the fun conference for the next, what would you say, 8-9 years? Because until you see an established dominant program, Utah, Kansas State, Oklahoma State, West Virginia, Baylor, TCU, Arizona kind of step up and take over and prove, yeah, we are the ones to beat. Every single year, it's going to be a race to the finish line in Arlington. And a guy like Garrett Greene can turn that race from a 9-headed competition to a 4-headed competition to a 3-headed competition. He's that good. He's that talented. And the fact that he has that mobility, that's going to add yet another element. Like when you think Avery Johnson, this could be the version of what Johnson becomes in 2025 because I think that in 2024, Greene is going to take flight. Number 8, I'm going to go Jalen Milroe. Milroe, once you realize how to properly utilize him, he is a damn good player. Let's just get this out of the way. When he is able to stay on the field and you know what is the best version of him, you know you're getting something great. 23 passing touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 12 rushing TDs, over 2,800 passing yards. The guy has a good arm. The guy has a cannon of an arm. The guy can compare to what you like in Uncle Rico. But at the same time, those deep shots, 10.9 yards per throw, it's really good to have as long as you're able to hit the doubles. Like the one, like I don't try to switch up conversations from time to time, but I will say the one area that I love making comparisons is a batter and a quarterback. Yeah, you can hit the home runs. Yeah, you can hit the singles. But the ones that are most successful, the ones that drive up their QBR or their RBIs, are the ones that hit the doubles and the triples. That's the 18-yard comebacks. That's the 22-yard post patterns. That's the 12-yard hitch and goes. Those are the passes that you need to see improvements on. And if you add that to this offense with what is returning, it's very scary. They have a good running game. They love what they have in Justice Haynes and Jay Miller. They love what they have in their backfield right now. But I want to see this growth in the middle of the field. And that's the version of what we're getting with Kalen DeBoer, who's done wonders. And by the way, he's done wonders with two vastly different quarterbacks in Jake Haener and a Michael Penix Jr. The fact that he's been able to get this type of success from those type of players, that's enough to make you feel very confident in the direction of where Alabama's going. And Jalen Milroe, if he can start learning how to attack the middle of the field with the RPO, with the ability to sling it 40 yards down the field without missing a beat, Alabama's not going to drop many games. Yeah, they're probably not going to have that same emulation of what was underneath Nick Saban. It would be foolish for year one of a new coaching staff, a brand new era of college football in the SEC, for you to get the same version of Jalen Milroe. I mean, the same version of the Crimson Tide that you had underneath Nick for 15 plus years. But still, quarterback play is going to be essential. And a guy like Milroe with the mobility, plus the ability to extend plays outside the pocket and wait for a receiver to get open downfield, that does wonders. And if he can have similar success the way Michael Penix did, plus with that mobility, watch out SEC, because Alabama's going to show up to the dance and they're going to be like a 9 seed, and then they're going to take off the mask and go, hey, we actually are the favorites once again. 7, Cam Ward. I know Cam Ward is really hyped. I'm not going to try and sugarcoat it. And I know that I am not helping the case when talking about Cam Ward. The guy balled out in a very limited offense underneath Jake Dickert last year. 25 total touchdowns. I think it was 7 interceptions, if I'm not mistaken. 7 or 8 interceptions. He had a fumble problem. We can all admit that, yes, he had a fumble problem last year. But he also was able to rush for 8 touchdowns. He's not really a good mobile playmaker, but what he is he is a good fit for Shannon Dawson's offense. The vertical attack down the field, trusting the run. People want to go ahead and say because Shannon Dawson comes with the air raid system that it's going to be all pass and no-go run. That's not the case. They just need to have the right personnel. And the thing about Miami is they've been building this roster for the last few years, especially in the offensive and defensive line, whether it be via the portal, whether it be in the recruiting ranks. They have protection up front to allow Cam Ward to work consistently across the middle of the field. He's got a good arm. You know it's a howitzer attached to his right shoulder. You know that he can, in the red zone, go ahead and punch it in for 6. And they now have a good run game to where you can rely on just dink and dunk passes to keep momentum and the sticks moving. There's not many excuses when you talk about Miami this year. In fact, the only excuse that I think Miami would have is if a player got injured, like a Cam Ward, and they have to turn to the backup. It happens. That's just something that you can't control in college football. But Ward as alone, the type of player that he is, the type of fit he could be for Miami for this offense with the weapons that are returning. And I'm not just talking about what you brought in with Sam Brown and Damian Martinez. I'm talking about you have Xavier Rensfro still there for what is it now? He's getting his MD in football. It feels like 800 years that he's been in Coral Gables. You have some other wide receivers. You have a good defense filled with new players that have been proven. This is the team that absolutely can come in right away and should be competing for an ACC title. Like I did a video talking about what is the winning season for Miami. I think it's getting to Charlotte. I think if you get there, that defines what winning is for you. And with Cam Ward, now the conversation isn't, well, let's just see where we can improve. Let's just see how we can get better. Now it's, no, we got the quarterback, we got the personnel, we have the pieces in play to go to the ACC championship game. The only thing that's going to stop us from getting there is us internally. 6, Noah Fafita. I love Arizona for one main reason. The buy-in from the players. And one domino effect can create a chaotic ripple that allows you to feel content. Arizona, to me, is a wild card team when it comes to the Big 12. I could see them going 7-5 and taking a little bit of a step back because of what they lost. I could still see them go 10-3, 10-2, make it to Arlington and find their way to the college football playoff. And in large part, to this guy. Last season, balled out. Immediately comes in for Jay and Delora and doesn't miss a beat whatsoever. Completes over, if I'm not mistaken, 62% of his passes, 2,800 passing yards, 25 touchdowns, also had an 83.3 QBR rating, did a good job in leading near upsets against Washington and USC in those 2 games combined. 0 interceptions, 8 touchdowns, over 550 passing yards. Not to mention, he also is going to have back his number 1 receiver in T-Mac. They also are going to have a very rigorous but productive schedule that will show why Fafita is living up to advertised. And also, you look at where this offensive line is, they still have the pieces. Yeah, you lose Jordan Morgan, but you don't lose much else. There is reason for optimism. I think that he is one of those guys that when he plays under pressure, he doesn't feel it. You never could tell by the way that he is able to manipulate defensive lines and create separation and deliver clean strikes across the middle of the field that he ever felt anything. I love the way that he plays the game. And I think that when he comes in this year to a brand new conference, Arizona falls in that same category along with West Virginia, Kansas. I think you got to throw maybe Oklahoma State into the mix. They're good teams that if they make it to Arlington, nobody really should be shocked. Not even a little bit. 5, Dillon Gabriel. The guy's been to like 3 schools, let's be real. UCF, Oklahoma, and Oregon. And at Oklahoma, he left because of who was waiting in the wings. And maybe he is a product of the system. I don't know. But here's what I do know. Will Stein's system is a fit for Dillon Gabriel. This is like biscuits and gravy. It's just a perfect combination that when you lay it over it, you take that first bite and you go, something about it's just great. That's the way I feel about Dillon Gabriel. He can fit in any style. What do we know about Will Stein's system? Let's talk about it real fast. Will Stein goes for quick tempo, clean strikes. Short, concise, get the ball out, put it right in the moneymaker. That's what Dillon Gabriel does best. He is great when it comes to delivering a clean pass across the middle of the field and picking up first downs to get to the next play. And when you have that type of offense and when you have that type of quarterback that can provide similar results in an offense that's going to cater to someone's strengths, you have no questions. People are going to say that Dillon Gabriel is going to go to the NFL. I don't see it. I don't see where after 6 years you have to prove that you can make it at the next level. But play college football and be a legend. And that's what Dillon Gabriel is going to go down as if he leads Oregon in their first year as Big Ten members to a conference championship. That's what Dillon Gabriel is going to do when he goes down and leads his team to a college football playoff and maybe even a national championship berth. Oregon is a lot like Texas, where we talk about where they are as a program going into a new era of college football. You don't have many question marks about them, like none whatsoever, in my opinion. They just are built like a Frankenstein monster that if you inserted and dropped them in the Big 12, they own it. They go in the Big 10, they'd have success. Put them in the SEC, they'd be fine. They have weapons. Evan Stewart comes on in. Tez Johnson's one of the best slot receivers. DJ James out of the backfield is a really, really good running. Jordan James, my apologies. Jordan James is a really good running back that backed up Bucky Irving. Their offensive line lost Jackson Powers Johnson. They got a center to replace him immediately. There's not a lot of questions. And then you also add in the RPO system to where Dillon Gabriel is going to be able to see the linebacker coming and closing the gap up the middle to where he just delivers a clean strike to Tez across the middle for a 15-yard gain. That adds another element to this offense. They got some stiff competition in the Big Ten, but I look at what he provides for this team. It's very hard not to like what his upside is. Yeah, I think there are some limitations to his overall play style, but the limitations aren't anything to really be that concerned about. He can easily come on in, be one of the best quarterbacks from the jump. He already is one of the most proven quarterbacks. It'd be very hard for me to say that he's not going to be one of the best from the get-go. Shedeur Sanders, number 4. Some people are going to say this is too high. I don't really care. I don't think he's a top 3 quarterback. There's a special line I have for those guys. But if I was to throw in an honorable mention, Shedeur's fun. Shedeur is a lot of fun. I don't agree with what his dad's saying. I don't agree with what some national pundits like. Mock drafts right now are absolutely stupid. We have no idea what's going to pan out. He's not going to be, in my opinion, a top 5 pick, but he is going to be an exciting firecracker to watch in 2024. He is. Because if you watched him last year, even with the makeshift offensive line and weapons that you didn't really have great trust with, he still was balling out every single week, throwing for 275 to 330 yards. He had that mobility aspect to him. If you look at his entire baseline of his career, he's completed over 68% of his passes for over 10,000 yards. He's 3 touchdowns shy of hitting the triple digits. He also showed you consistently that he could keep drives alive with his legs, move outside the pocket, and deliver a clean ball downfield. And they upgraded a wide receiver. They did. They did try to build an offensive line around him. And I do think that is a big deal. And if that's going to be a thing that hinders their success, okay, so be it. But sometimes what you have to do, and we do this all the time when it comes to scouting purposes, don't scout the helmet, scout the player. The same thing resides for Shedeur Sanders. Don't talk about Colorado. Don't talk about what the offensive line could be. Talk about what the numbers look like. If he finishes with top 5 in passing yards, doesn't that show you that he is one of the better quarterbacks because of what he was given at his advantage? Doesn't it show you where his faults reside? That's what really stands out when it comes to Sanders, is that there's so much intrigue and upside to his game. How do you not find him to be one of the more impressive quarterbacks in college football? If he puts up similar numbers to Quinn Ewers, to Dylan Gabriel, to Cam Ward, and then you look at what their offensive lines look like, and you look at what their receiving cores look like, and he's doing that, he may end up actually being one of, if not the best quarterback in college football for 2024, simply because of the situation he was put in was a dead-on arrival kind of part. 3 is Quinn Ewers. The top 3 I've gone back and forth with switching. I may go back and switch it again before the season start. Ewers, to me, has the most to prove because if you look back at last season, I've been on record saying as much as I believe Texas was great, I believe the defensive line carried a lot of that weight to where they gave the ball and the offense multiple chances to score. And you don't have a Byron Murphy and a Devondre Sweat anymore. You don't have a Jalen Ford. You are missing multiple pieces from that defense that really were separators for this team. And now you're going to have to work with brand new wide receivers. The good news is you lose out Adonai Mitchell, you lose Xavier Worthy, you lose Jordan Whittington, you lose Amari Niblack, and you replace them with quality guys that might even put up just as similar, if not better, numbers in the SEC. You get Silas Bolden, human highlight reel when it comes to speed. You get Matthew Golden. He's a great special teamer and a nice complementary piece. You have Jonte Cook waiting in the wings. That number 2 is going to be a number 1 receiver sometime in the not-so-distant future. You get Isaiah Bond. You get Amari Niblack. You have a good run game. You still have one of the best offensive lines in college football. There's really no excuse. There's none. There is just a lot to like about his style of play and his consistency. You got to give credit where credit's due. He did improve. He had a very rocky first year, and it felt like going into year 2, it was more comfortable in Steve's offense. It was more comfortable in Sark's play calling. The ball was coming out faster. His decision-making was on point. And so you wonder, well, what's it look like in year 3? What's it look like now when they have new weapons, but he can be the alpha? And I think that there's going to be a little bit of pressure on him because you do have the fans that are clamoring for Arch in the background. It's not going to happen. Not the point. The point is that you look at what Quinn can be and what he should be. There's a lot to like about his team. And there's a lot to like about his overall play style. And if he does get better, well, now we're talking about Texas not being just BACK, but we're talking about Texas having potentially a Heisman finalist, potentially a quarterback that can lead you to a conference championship. Again, in a brand new conference. In year 1, we're talking about a guy that maybe can do enough to get you to the end goal of winning a national title. Isn't that kind of interesting when you think about what his overall upside could be? The next 2 are SEC quarterbacks as well. Jackson Dart comes in for me at number 2. If you've watched the one-off video of me talking about can Jackson Dart win the Heisman Trophy, it's not just the fact that, yes, he can win it because of easily you have the supporting cast around you. Just like Quinn Ewers, just like the guy who comes in at number 1. Spoiler alert, you can probably guess who's number 1. It's not just having another year in the system like Quinn Ewers. It's about taking that jump forward. And this is a quarterback that really was not used to playing in the Lane Kiffin style of offense when he was at USC. Comes on in, has a very up and down rocky year. He watches as Walker Howard and Spencer Sanders come on in, and he doesn't really care. He's like, okay, cool. I'll just beat you out, and I'll show you against Mercer that I am the best quarterback in the room. And number 2 became the number 1 option, and he balled out last year. And his numbers went up in terms of passing yards, and his numbers went up in terms of passing touchdowns, and his turnover ratio went down. And lo and behold, here we are now talking about Jackson Dart maybe being a Heisman finalist, being the sole proprietor as why Ole Miss is going to the playoff in 2024, why Ole Miss can actually dream of making it to a national championship. Think about this for a second. Ole Miss going into the year, according to FanDuel odds, is the 8th ranked team in terms of championship odds. Ole Miss a few years ago was watching Elijah Moore pee on the sidelines or do the fake dog pee with Matt Luke as their head coach. And maybe none of this happens without him. So you may want to build a statue of Elijah Moore, just like you might build a statue of Jackson Dart if he ends up winning a conference championship, the first for Ole Miss, and he ends up winning a Heisman Trophy. And that could happen. That easily could happen. If you're not buying into that, I don't know what to tell you. He's got the ability. He's got another year in Lane system. He's got another year to work with these wide receivers that were all transfers. It just feels like this is leading up to the last dance the way he wants it, not in terms of going to a playoff, but the last dance to kind of put a bow on his college career of beating the odds, coming into a system, trusting his gut, and sticking around for the process. But number one, easily, it's Carson Beck for me. Beck last year was an anomaly in terms of when you watch him play, especially against SEC teams, he never felt under duress. And I mean this in the most respectful way. You lose Ladd McConkey at the start of the season. Okay, not a big deal. I'll find another receiver. I'll be able to go ahead and target somebody else. Well, then you lose, of course, Brock Bowers. Okay, not a big deal. I'll just go ahead and build a relationship with these other guys. I'll be able to find a way to keep momentum moving. And he threw for nearly 4,000 yards in his first year as a starter in the biggest games: Missouri, Ole Miss, Tennessee. Guy balled out. And then against Alabama, he didn't win, and he had two major hiccups that eventually played into the loss. He still had a damn good game. And you feel like when you talk about Georgia this year, they're like the guy at the blackjack table that's going all in and then hits 21 and then hits 21 a second time and then watches the dealer bust and he just says, let it ride, let it ride, let it ride. Because they just recoup all their profits and then they add in a little bit of cash when it comes to the transfer portal with guys like Kobe Young, with guys like Ben Urasek, with guys like Trevor Etienne. Beck's got a cast of characters that are going to only elevate his status as arguably the best quarterback in college football, the number one quarterback that's going to be in the NFL draft. There's reasons to believe that this is the front runner for every accolade when it comes to passing yards, because if he's got everything at his disposal, and much like Jackson Dart, much like Quinn Ewers, they all are going to be in the same offense. Imagine seeing this guy get over 4,000 passing yards and once again be the cream of the crop in the SEC. It wouldn't shock me, and it shouldn't shock you. But those are my top 10 quarterbacks real fast. Cam Rising at Utah, Garrett Greene at West Virginia, Jalen Milroe at Alabama, Cam Ward at Miami, Noah Fafita at Arizona, Dylan Gabriel at Oregon, Shadur Sanders at Colorado, Quinn Ewers at Texas comes in with the bronze. Silver medal goes to Jackson Dart out of Ole Miss. I'm really high on him. I'm okay with that. And number one, taking the top spot, of course, is Carson Beck. Let me know in the comment section down below, who are your top 10 quarterbacks going into 2024. Leave a comment also telling me what you think of my top 10 quarterbacks. Who am I too high on? Who am I too low on? Tell your friends, family, mortal enemies, best of bros, college football aficionados everywhere about this channel, because we want to be the number one college football community. Like, rate, review, subscribe. Leave a comment telling me what you want to see in the future, and make sure that you're following me on social media. That way, conversations surrounding our favorite sport never have to stop flowing. I am Cole Thompson, and until next time, folks, later.